Nancy Pelosi calls this GOP impeachment frivolous, which it is. But yours was too, Madam Speaker, as she likes to be called. So let's listen to this video when she was on with Jonathan Capehart and understand Nancy Pelosi only goes on when she knows the interview is going to be a nice interview.
That guy, that Negro, the only reason that Negro is on TV because they trust him like a motherfucker. They got so much. I remember he had an interview with Anthony Blinken not too long ago.
Oh wow, they trust him that much. Oh yeah, they trust him.
He get all the big. That's the only time I ever see this guy is when he's talking to a big establishment creature. They trust this Negro more than they trust their fucking kids. All
right, let's play the clip. It's a very short. It's 2 minutes, but let's listen.
Getting back to this, impeachment is deadly serious. This is a remedy that our founders put in the Constitution for a rogue official. They could foresee we would have a rogue president of the United States. They couldn't foresee that we'd have a rogue president.
I don't know. Would you define a president as rogue, Nick, that's taking us, marching us down a proxy war to a nuclear, possibly nuclear war with China and Russia? I would call that pretty unhinged. You get what I'm saying? What about a president who's in power who has dementia or some sort of other cognitive declining illness? What is that? What would you call that, Nancy Pelosi? But understand, everybody, we're gonna have Nancy Pelosi for several more years. She's running for re-election. Okay.
Getting back to this, impeachment is deadly serious. This is a remedy that our founders put in the Constitution for a rogue official. They could foresee we would have a rogue president of the United States. They couldn't foresee that we'd have a rogue president and a rogue Senate, rogue Congress. But nonetheless, for them to use this in the frivolous way.
I got to give Nancy Pelosi a history lesson because I told you guys on Google. She mentioned the Constitution. The reason why the Constitution didn't calculate the Senate is because the Senate is a new invention. Like the Senate was made in the late 19th century, and it was originally designed to be unelected bureaucrats. The job of the original Senate was they was handpicked by Congress and the rich to overwrite laws that the Congress passed that goes against the rich and the ruling class. So, for one, Nancy Pelosi, you don't even know your history. This is the fake history that they teach you in the United States. The Constitution, they didn't account for the Senate. They said nothing about Senate. So, I say we should abolish the Senate. And when people say, Nick, you think we should abolish the Senate? Like, nigga, that shit's new. That shit's not institutional. It wasn't until I got fact check the date, and I
can insert a little bit here.
I got Google the date because it wasn't until the 1900s, the early 1900s. And I'm gonna look at the exact year that you was allowed to vote for a senator. Like that was like within the last 100 years, CJ, that you was allowed to vote for Senate. Before they would just handpick them, and they're like, you're there to block vote. But go ahead, CJ. I know you want to chime in.
Let me speak to that because I do know a little bit about it after reading a book. So a lot of senators, original senators, when they invented the Senate, were actually slave owners, like our richest slave owners. And the reason this was invented, or one of the reasons, because it could be multiple layers of reasons, one of the reasons was they didn't want the House could at some point have enough people in the House that would go against all the things that slave owners wanted. So they didn't want that to happen. They was like, man, the House could get to where it can be so many people that they're going to be voting against all the things of all these rich slave owners. So they invented the Senate. You notice how the Senate doesn't matter. Everybody gets 2. It doesn't matter if you have, 10 people or you got California, you got several million people. Everybody gets 2. So the concept was to slow down democracy, was to prevent democracy. That is what the Senate is for. Go ahead.
That's like when I say abolish ICE, a bunch of government bootlickers on the right, like, oh my God, abolish ICE? What are we going to do about the border? Like, ICE was founded in 2003, sir. You are most likely older than ICE. If you're listening to this, there's a good chance that you're older than ICE. So Americans keep having this perception that these institutions are older than they actually are. Look at this here. I had to fact check myself. I didn't remember on top of my head. Voters have selected U.S. senators in the privacy of the voting booth since 1913. So, and then in 1826, you have resolutions for people saying that we should elect senators. So in the 1800s, people were like, nigga, you guys got unelected bureaucrats. So back then they were considered the radical. CJ, you guys want to change the system and allow peasants to vote for senators? That'll be us. And well, obviously not. We'd be slaves back then, but you guys.
You have to catch yourself historically. Yeah, I have to catch myself historically. No,
but you guys see what I'm saying though. Like the radical side was like, hey, we need to vote for the senators. Maybe a few of them for staying in slavery. And by the way, people who apologize for founding fathers, abolitionists exist as early as the 1500s. Like abolitionists has always been a thing. So there was abolitionists in the 1800s, and they're probably the same ones that saying that we should vote for senators. Like, but anyway, that's a very new concept. I kind of derailed the segment. I just want to do.
No, it's a good history footnote lesson.
Yeah, but I want to show you how Nancy Pelosi full of shit. So you can go back like 5 seconds because she talked about pretty much political. Like when politicians talk about history, it's just political fan fiction. I'll put the video back up. Essentially political fan fiction. So anyway, let's continue.
Yeah. All right. So Pelosi right here. I'm gonna rewind it maybe 10 seconds here. Where am I? Let's go back maybe 10 seconds to about there.
Of course. But nonetheless, for them to use this in the frivolous way that they are.
I want to include the founding fathers' comments. So let me go back a little more.
The Constitution for a rogue official. They could foresee we would have a rogue president of the United States. They couldn't foresee that we'd have a rogue president and a rogue Senate, rogue Congress. But nonetheless, for them to use this in the frivolous way that they are is really a disservice to our country, to our Constitution. They have they've had months, almost this whole year, the whole time, 9 months, going on 9 months of investigations. The rest they've come up with nothing. When we engaged in impeaching the president because we had no choice, he was.
They had no choice, Nick. But this is just frivolous. But they had no choice. You have the audacity to say this, Nancy, because almost every president could have been impeached as a war criminal. But for you to pretend like yours was on the up and up, because Trump could have been impeached for a bunch of emoluments clauses. But the problem is Nancy also is profiting from her.
I think you could impeach Trump for killing General Soleimani of Iran.
Yes,
I think that was 100% impeachment worthy. There's so many things like him stealing over $1 billion of Venezuelan gold. That's impeachment worthy. There's so much real stuff they could have got Trump on, but they didn't. And I want you to understand how unhinged Nancy Pelosi is right now, because they're talking about an impeachment inquiry. CJ, I feel like a lot of people forget about that. They're not talking about actual impeachment. Nancy Pelosi said, no, don't look into corruption ever. The impeachment inquiry is fact-finding about Hunter Biden's corruption. Why did Biden set up so many show companies? What did Biden talk about with the limousine rides used to give Hunter Biden's associates? There were phone call records where Biden and Hunter Biden was on call with Hunter Biden's business associates. So the question is, what did Biden say to those people? That's why you have an impeachment inquiry, CJ and friends and family, so you can figure that stuff out, and then you can see whether you can have impeachment or not. Nancy Pelosi say, no, we don't want facts. No inquiries, no fact-finding. We are not corrupt. Please believe us. You guys know how unhinged this is? Like, my mind is so decolonized. These people sound so extreme to me, CJ. Unhinged, yeah, and people who vote Democrat, the people who are duopolists, even the progressive, like when they still hinge towards the Democrats, it confuses me because they don't see what I see. Like, I see unhinged psychopaths who say stuff that makes no sense. You can't inquire over corruption? That's an extremist position, fam. But sorry, CJ, go ahead.
We were accusing him of high crimes and misdemeanors, which were evident. And even Republican senators voted for in terms of Ukraine and in terms of the assault on the Capitol. But this is almost silly, except that it's so serious.
Is it something that the Biden White House should worry about politically?
Well, I think you always have to. The time is our most important commodity. It's finite. And doing this is taking away from meeting the needs of the American people. We have a
doing this is taking away from meeting the needs of the people. So, Nancy Pelosi, are you saying if not for the impeachment inquiry that it hasn't even started yet, you would be doing for the American people? Is that what she's saying? Are we really to believe this? Both of them do this because that's what Republicans were saying when you were impeaching Trump. You guys are wasting Americans' time and money. You could be handling the real. They never handle the real things. They always have distractions to where they're never handling the real issues of the American citizens, and this is no different. All right, let's continue.
Have a serious budget debate coming up. Imagine the insensitivity of the Republicans in the House to the child poverty rate in our country. Under President Biden, the Biden child tax credit cut child poverty in half. Because of their refusal to renew it and continue it, child poverty has more than increased. It's gone from 5.6 to 10 point something, or maybe it's up to 12 by now, certain communities. So this is sinful. Again, it's not about values. Our budget should be a statement of our values. And what is important to us is
our budget should be a statement of our values. That is a very, very loaded statement. Our budget should be a reflection of our values. So let's take that, Nick. Our budget, military budget, on paper, $900 billion. Off paper, it's well over $1 trillion. Is that an indication of who we are, Nick? Isn't that? Because that's what Nancy Pelosi just said. Our budget is a reflection of who we are. So if the vast thing we spend the most money on is killing people around the world, what are we then?